Can't hear. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can the courtroom hear? I can't hear the courtroom. I don't think the audio is working in the court for us to hear the courtroom.
Thanks for the time. Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it, man. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's nice.
9, 10, 11.
Happy birthday to you.
Whose birthday is it?
Oh, right, oh, that's right. Do you have a lunch birthday today?
Did you go out to lunch, or is she taking you out to dinner?
She's cooking.
Oh.
So he's gonna need y'all to hurry this up. He's got some good cooking to get.
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you 60 today?
Yes, yep.
62?
Happy birthday.
Andrea said happy birthday.
Thank you. If I'm not looking in the right place, I can't hear them.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
for dinner. That's what we're having.
Well, she will only touch it and cook it on my birthday.
Oh, she don't like it.
She doesn't like it, so I have sandwiches, something like that.
Okay.
And did you sign this already?
I could have fish and chicken.
Me too.
I'm the secretary.
Sure.
And barbecue once a month. Yeah, you're right there. I ain't bad. Ain't bad. That'll happen. Just go down over. Oh, it won't, there's gonna be too many what just yet. It's gonna be a big deal.
Are we ready?
Got about 1 minute, looks like.
Call to order the Finance and Budget Committee of Washington County. Prayer pledge will be led by Lisa Ecke.
Thank you. You can stand with me, please. Bow your heads in honor. Heavenly Father God, we are so grateful to you for creating such a beautiful day here in Northwest Arkansas. We thank you that you're the creator of all things. You bring forth wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and insight. That you want us to humble ourselves and to ask for your help. And so therefore we do. We humble ourselves under the mighty hand of God. May you give us and grant us insight and understanding to move forward in the spirit of peace, truth, liberty, and freedom. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the Budget Committee. Miss Patty, will you please call the roll?
Susan Cunningham,
Here.
Patrick Deakins,
Here.
Sam Duncan,
Here.
Lisa Ecke,
Here.
Ann Harbison,
Here.
Suki Hires,
Here.
Andrea Jenkins,
Here.
Lance Johnson,
Here.
Willie Lemming,
Present.
Eva Madison,
Here.
Sue Madison,
Here.
Butch Pond,
Here.
Derek Thomas, Chandra Washington,
Here.
and Judith Yanez.
Here.
JP Harbison, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Dear, do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second. I've got Second.
Motion and a second.
a question from JP Jenkins.
Okay, JP Jenkins.
I just wanted to let you know that the flag is still, okay, there we go. We're good.
All right, thank you. All right, we have a motion to adopt the agenda and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion has been adopted. The agenda has been adopted, excuse me. All right, we're ready.
Madam
We
Chair,
have an order.
I don't
What's
see
that?
that
JP.
box to
Sue
raise
Madison.
your hand. Where's my little
Okay,
box to
we
raise
can
my
see,
hand?
we can see you. Okay, Sam Duncan, we have an ordinance, brought forth by you, and we have a motion and a second on it, and we have continued discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just want to remind everyone the purpose of the ordinance, and the original intent was to grow reserves for the county. So instead of the way, let's start with savings, let's grow that savings account. As I was asked the question, why does it matter to grow reserves? I wanted to make that very clear, my intentions behind that. Why we grow reserves is we have the opportunity to self-fund capital projects if we grow reserves to a certain level. So like maybe a new juvenile court or maybe a remodel of some sort. We have the ability, instead of issuing debt via a bond or going out for some kind of sales tax, instead we have opportunities to actually self-fund that via our own county reserves. And then we can essentially pay ourselves back. So it's giving ourselves a loan at 0 interest. So that to me has the taxpayer in mind. That to me has best interest of the county in mind. What a crazy idea if we continue to grow reserves year over year and got to the point where we realize that we actually are taking in more revenue than necessary, and we could actually lower taxes. So that to me is the ultimate goal, is to grow reserves, to be able to self-fund capital projects, and then long-term be able to lower the millage rate and lower the taxes for the people of Washington County. As I looked at this ordinance, I spent some time Sunday morning after church going through this, and I walked through on an Excel sheet and I double-checked all the percentages, looked at the allocations. I got my budget book out and I looked at each elected official and every budget that's included in this. And as I went back and forth, I noticed a couple of things. So first, if you look at the percentages, we're essentially giving the elected officials exactly what they asked for. And that includes the enforcement side of the jail, and just as a reminder, the enforcement side of the sheriff's budget. As a reminder, the roads budget and the jail budget are separate from this discussion and separate from this ordinance. But within the ordinance, we're giving the enforcement side, that includes the step raises. So I just wanted to make that clear for everyone on the course, that step raises would be included in this particular ordinance. And as I went back and forth on this, I kind of had an epiphany. As I thought through it, it made me realize that if we give the elected officials exactly what they're asking for, and then later on we come back and we fund pay increases, or if we were to go and do an infusion of some sort, that money has to come from somewhere. Guess what? That comes from the same reserves that we are just working so hard to build up. So as I thought through that process, I wanted to make one additional amendment. So I moved the adoption of this ordinance with the amendment that raises be given out of the allocated funds. So said another way, that will put some healthy pressure on the elected officials to give out raises within the percentage that they're given of that total. So if you think about each elected official's budget, not 100% of their budget is going to be employee payroll. So therefore, we're asking for them to take out a little bloat of their budget and to find some money to give raises within the money that we're allotting. That will allow us not to turn around at the end of this process and go and say, hey, now we're going to give raises, and we're going to take out of that same unappropriated reserve, that same savings account that we just worked so hard to grow. So I think this will really help us achieve the goal of growing unappropriated reserves. It'll help take some bloat out of the budget, and we'll put some healthy pressure to do that. So I make the motion that we add that pay raises be included in the ordinance. It suggests that pay raises come out of the budget that were given by these percentages. Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
All right, there's a second to this amendment to the ordinance. All right, okay, J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
There's several of us that have had our hand.
You will be called, she can see you, you will be called upon. It's on the chair to call in the order in which she chooses.
I can't see them.
Yeah.
I don't see any raised hands.
I'll let you know.
Okay,
There are raised hands.
okay.
We've had our hands raised a long time.
Excuse me, let's not be rude. You will be recognized in order. Put your hands up.
Point of order. Point of order.
Excuse me.
Don't we recognize people in the order in which they ask to be recognized? If you can't see us, that doesn't work.
Not necessarily, the Robert.
I'm not talking to you, Mr. Lester. I'm talking to the
I'm
chair.
the parliamentarian, JP Madison, and so I will answer the questions as parliamentarian, whether you like it or not.
Go ahead and lose your cool like you always do. Go for it.
Let's be civil,
I want
please.
it ruled on. I made a point of order and I want it ruled on.
All right, I'm asking the parliamentarian to rule on it.
No, you
Your
rule
point
as the
of-
chair.
All right. What is
If you
your
can't-
point of order?
If you can't see us, how do we ensure that the people who've been asked to be recognized are recognized?
Mr. Lester will tell me when you have raised your hand, all right?
Okay, well, my
Thank you.
hand was raised for the whole time that JP Duncan was speaking, and he didn't tell you.
I'm sorry. All right. I did see JP Lisa Eckes. You may speak after her. Thank you. Lisa, JP Eckes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me see if I can gather my thoughts. I support and agree with the motion to,
Take raises.
yes, have raises within their budget. And I've always felt that that should be the process every year at the budget. Then they come back during the year asking for raises, and I'm going, why didn't you do that during the budget process? But so this is common sense, but I want to make sure that it does go through JSAP policy, that all those raises that are to be given will be done through, if it's title change, then it needs to go through JSAP so that we continue to follow JSAP policies and transparency. If there is a raise, then within the budget, just inform the court that I am operating within my budget and this is what I'm doing. But I support and I agree. Brilliant. You're to be commended. Thank you.
All right, JP Madison, Eva Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think we're being dishonest with the folks who've submitted budgets. We've said all along in the earlier versions of this ordinance that we would separately consider raises. And so now on the night that we're to vote on it, when it's been a surprise to everyone, we're going to say to individuals who've kept budgets flat or even cut them, oh, surprise, you get to figure out how to give your people a raise out of that. That's absolutely not fair, and there's absolutely no way that these people can make the budgets work. We're basically saying don't give employee raises. Moreover, the math on this doesn't require that. So given that we have a presidential debate tonight, I'm going to borrow a presidential debate phrase called fuzzy math. So we have asked that this whole scheme of this ordinance is to put $5 million in reserves. But if you look at last month's, or this month's actually, unappropriated reserve balance report, we had more than $5 million in reserves. So exactly what are we saving? We're not saving anything more than we already have. In fact, we're spending more of it. We have $5.9 million in reserves, and then we have set aside $916,000 for the sheriff's budget, which we may or may not spend. So we're not saving money with this ordinance. And what we're doing is we're saying that we're going to allow all the budgets that were approved or that were presented out of the general fund to be approved. And the difference between available to budget after holdback plus $5 million in reserves, subtract out all these budgets, is $1.385 million. So why in the world are we saying to elected officials, scrape it together to get your employees a little minuscule raise when that doesn't even fit with this scheme? So this is a disservice and a slap in the face to our county employees to say, oh yeah, at the last minute, by the way, you're probably not going to get a raise unless your elected officials go dig and cut somewhere else in their budgets. We've never done that. It's not fair to the employees. That's not what we've said we would do. I will absolutely oppose this amendment. We've got the money to consider raises. we've got the money to consider putting more in reserves than what we already have, because we're not growing savings under this plan. We're not. I encourage you to look up at last month's budget, the last actual report from the comptroller, and you will see that we have almost $6 million in our unappropriated reserve. So we're going backwards, not only with reserves, but we're going backwards with what we owe to our county employees. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sue Madison.
Who,
Sue Madison.
all right, JP, Sue Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I believe it was meeting before last when we first considered this ordinance that had 8 co-sponsors or 8 sponsors. I'm mystified how this ordinance can now be on its 3rd version and those 8 co-sponsors remain. Either people were willing to keep their names on something they'd never read, or they were polled in violation of FOIA, both of which concern me. And I think this ordinance is totally out of order.
JP Madison, let's keep our comments germane to the ordinance, please.
I believe the appropriateness of the ordinance is germane. This ordinance is illegally presented. These co-sponsors cannot have given permission.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else? As chair, I'm a little mystified as to the amendment. We have plenty of money to give the raises. We're trying to do a whole lot at one time. We're trying to change the budget process and the procedures, which I think's good. But I think that we're doing too much at one time. So that's my opinion. Thank you. Are there any other comments before we vote on the amendment? If not,
One last
yes.
comment. The elected officials still have the full opportunity to give raises. It's about a 1% reduction they would need to find within their budget. It's actually slightly less than that. When you look at what payroll is as a percentage of their total, that would be to give a 3% raise across the board. So this is in no way a crazy ask. It's saying, hey, go find a little less than 1% reduction in your budget and give all of your employees a 3% raise, which is what we've done in the past. So I know that some people are saying they're mystified and their mind's blown. I don't think a 1% reduction in your budget is mind-blowing. At least it's not to me. We're actually giving them exactly what they're asking for, and now we're just saying, hey, go cut a little bit of bloat. We want to see the county employees get raises. I'd love to see everyone get a 3% raise. But why would we go and undo everything, the goal of this ordinance, which is to grow reserves and grow savings? We can't do everything. So we've got to work hard, make some tough decisions, and find a way to operate within a budget. And so that's the goal of this ordinance: operate within a budget, grow reserves, make some tough decisions.
Thank you, JP Duncan. JP Deakins.
Can I ask a couple questions, and I'm not sure who would be best to answer them, but
Okay.
with the mechanics of this ordinance, if we pass these budget controls this evening, the elected officials undoubtedly have the opportunity to go back and revise their budgets, correct, that we've been delivered so far. That's the intent?
Well, I'm not sure that's, I think probably, Mr. Worthen, Shannon Worthen, are you on? I think basically what we're saying here is, from past experience, is that once we go through the budget,
Shannon's on.
they're pretty well set for the year.
What I'm saying is, after tonight, let's just say, for example, if we pass these budget controls,
Right.
the elected officials would have the opportunity to revise next year's budgets that they submitted to us, if they wanted to make changes within their.
Well, we normally do that in an interview process. The way this is set up, we will be only interviewing what the court requests. One, the road department, and the other, the jail. Those are the two. Otherwise, unless we decide to call in other elected officials to question them about an item in their budget,
Right.
then their budget is set.
But if an elected official wanted to keep their budget, the overall gross the same, I mean, overall numbers. But they needed to accommodate raises within certain expenditure items. They have the ability to do that. Is that correct?
Well, line items are set when we, are set in the budget, and we don't have any line items for their particular budget for salaries. That usually comes from the county, and we have the money, to appropriate 3%. I don't, most budgets are pretty flat. I doubt if they have much padding in their budgets. We've seen this in the past, but, I think it's a good idea, but I think it's one of those things that we need to, approach in the future. Just doing a percentage is, upsetting the cart, so to speak, but I think it's a good idea to have an idea so they know what the revenue is, they know what they're gonna have to budget when they come in. J.P. Johnson.
When I look at the rollovers that are projected for this year, last year's budget sure weren't very tight.
No, they weren't. I agree with that. All right. Is there anyone else that want to comment on this amendment before we vote on it? J.P. Lemmy.
Patrick, did you get yours answered? I don't think so.
Well,
Sort of.
I guess what's important,
Yes.
I guess just what's important to me is, I want us to all focus that these budget controls set the rules of the game, if you will. I think the trade-off is that then the elected officials have the freedom, in my mind, to accommodate what they want for their departments within their budget, and I think that's the trade-off. And so that's why I'm a fan of this. We're going at this revenue first, when historically I've always seen us go at expenses first. And while our oversight will still be there, we're giving the elected officials some sort of latitude to do what they feel is right within their departments. And I think that's incredibly important. I've had a lot of discussions with elected officials over the last few weeks, and I realize that those individuals elected to their offices live in their offices 365, 24/7, 365, and I trust a lot of their judgments in where they think the money needs to go. It's important for us to protect the reserve, and I think it's important for them to accommodate their offices the way they see fit. So that's my comments. Thank you.
JP, Eva Madison.
All right. J.P. Eva Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one of the reasons that we see that this current budget year expenditures look down from budget is because of COVID. It's not because the budget was too generous last year. It's because all of our elected officials have been extremely conservative in spending money because of the uncertainty. That does not mean that next year they're going to be overflowing with money to give raises. So to say that this year's budget somehow shows that the elected officials have the money to give these raises is just, it doesn't make sense. We're comparing a pandemic year to a usual year, and that's not accurate. So the other thing that I'm concerned about is once this passes, we have to be able to see the budget has to include each position's pay rate. And so we can't just say, okay, elected officials, go out there, decide who gets a raise, figure it out. All of that has to come through us. And so there's not a way to just wave a wand tonight and fix the problem. That it will have to come back through this committee and have to go to the full quorum court. It can't be just decided next year. It has to be decided through this process. And so I think we need to be very careful in telling the elected officials, well, you got plenty of money this year, so find money to pay for your raises, because they've been doing what they should be doing because of the economic uncertainties of a pandemic, and they're not filling positions. And so that's why we're where we are, not because we over budgeted in some way. So I think that, and if I heard JP Duncan correctly, we're also saying that the sheriff's folks are getting their step increases in the budget. So, I realize that's ordinance. I was the sponsor of that ordinance, but I don't know how we can say sheriff's employees get their raises, but everybody else, you're on your own. I don't think that works.
Thank you.
JP Yanez. I'm just letting you know, JP Yanez.
Okay, JP Deakins and then Yanez.
I also want to say that I think there's a poor assumption that if we pass these controls and the budgets go through, that we abandon the elected officials throughout the year next year, and that's just completely not true. I know that we're going to go through an election and this court will look different next year, but if an elected official runs into some sort of rough patch or needs something replaced, they can bring that to us and we can fund that throughout the year next year. I don't want us to assume that, you know, this is it, set in stone and move forward. I mean, we can accommodate emergencies next year, and I just want everybody to realize that there is a process there for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Yanez, JP Yanez.
Point of order.
Who's got a point of order?
JP Washington.
Washington.
What is your point?
My point is that I would like us to be cognizant of the rules of debate per Robert's rules, and we have people that have spoken more than twice. So if we could just please be cognizant of that so that everyone could have an opportunity to speak if they would like to.
Okay, JP Yanez.
So thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, JP Washington. So just a statement and a question. I was not aware of the raises, and given the court's previous history on raises, I cannot vote yes on this tonight. And additionally, if we start with budget cuts, will the departments be able to come back and ask for additional spending?
Yes, according to this ordinance, yes. All right. Okay, is there anyone else that has not spoken before? I recognize JP Ecke. Right, JP Ecke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Once again, to support the amended ordinance, anytime somebody's going to receive a raise during the year, it does have to go through JSAC. And from there, it goes to personnel, and personnel goes to budget and finance most of the time, not every single time. But there's processes in place to protect elected officials from just going out and just handing out raises unapproved. We still have to know who's getting a raise and based on what, or JSAC. If there's a compression rate of four grades within their salary range, within their job description, they even have to come to us. And they'll say, I have it within my budget. That's great, but they still have to go through personnel. That is where the checks and balances to all of this come from. So there's not anything nebulous about it. It's going to be very upfront because we already have processes in place. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else to speak to the amendment? JP Lenny.
I was just going to ask, you said the road department budget and the jail budget
Are separate, yes.
are separate totally from all this.
Yes.
Is it the money that we can't do nothing with? Or is it
Well,
money
we
we
can
have to?
direct it within those budgets, yes.
So we will or won't have any say-so over them? We will?
Well, we'll have a.
So general fund gets 60%, the jail gets, I mean,
Road gets 40% of the 1 cent sales tax. They also get a millage rate. They also get money from the state. But let's get back on this amendment. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak to the amendment? Butch.
I have a
JP
question,
Pond.
if anybody here can answer it. Have any of the elected officials been informed of this ahead of time? Do they know about it before this meeting? Are there any of them listening? If they are, I'd like to hear comment from any of the elected officials that are with us here. electronically that would like to speak?
Do you have anyone, Brian? I was not aware of it, so I'm assuming the elected officials are not aware of it.
Madam Chair, we have an
Any other-
attendee that's raised their hand. I don't know who it is.
Matt Jarrett has raised his hand.
Yeah.
Matt Jarrett.
Matt Durrett has raised his hand.
Oh, okay, Matt, Brian, Matt Durrett, you may speak.
Thank you. I wasn't aware of it, and my issue is I just don't know what kind of effect it's going to have on my budget. So I mean, I have to put the pen to paper to see how much it would cost to give X percentage and whatnot. And we, at least I know that I did, and I know that a lot of other elected officials, as it pertains to this year's budget, we met with the county judge and others, and were asked to cut 10% of our budgets in light of COVID. And so I know that some people had to do furloughs. I had to cut my employees' hours. I didn't fill an attorney position. We were able to get through because of COVID, oddly enough, but mainly because we haven't had a trial in probably since February or maybe early March. So expenses that we normally would put toward a trial or toward trial preparation weren't necessary this year. And my concern is next year we're gonna get caught up and then some, and so that we're going to pay for this year's lack of expenditures next year, assuming that everything gets back to normal. So I don't know. I'm not saying that I'm opposed to whatever. I just don't know what effect it's going to have on my budget, and that's assuming that I haven't done the numbers for every budget. So I don't know that the figures aren't going to be exact. So I don't know if some people are going to get more, some departments are going to get less, and that would be a concern of mine. So take that for what it's worth.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Bobby Hill.
Okay, Treasurer Bobby Hill.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, no, I didn't know about the latest amendment. Issue I have is myself and the collector. Our general budgets are personnel only, so there's no room for raises. If that's the way we want it to go, I could increase my automation fund, but that I would have to raise the budget on that side. But ooh, I got some feedback there.
Okay.
But the treasurer and collector general budgets are personnel only, and there's no room for raises in this scenario. That's all I had.
Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment.
Oh, Kyle Sylvester.
Okay. Kyle, our circuit clerk, Kyle Sylvester.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm all for allowing each elected official their percentage to do their budgets each year. To throw the raises in there, we're going to pretty much have to revamp everything, which that's going to take a little time. And like Bobby said, there's some elected officials that don't have any wiggle room. Most of my general budget is personnel, like Bobby's. There is some in there for office expenses, but I would also have to heavily amend my recorder's cost budget to make up for it. I'm not saying it's not doable, but each individual office is different and they only have so much wiggle room. Thank you.
Angela Wood.
Okay, and Collector Angela Wood?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, like Bobby said, there's no room for me to add raises into my budget since it's only salaries coming out of the general. And if I raise my automation, that's just going to take more money from the schools. And so I don't want to take more money from the schools that I shouldn't have to. So there's no way I can, with these percentages, actually give my people raises. I'm good with it, with the budget the way that it is, without the raises included. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Roger Morris.
All right, our corner, Roger Morris.
Y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Have you noticed my budget's going to increase just due to COVID? In fact, we've already gone through a little over probably 600 body bags, and I've been asked for more at some of our local institutions. Now, I could possibly do a raise for my employees out of part-time deputy coroner pay if I had to, but other than that, and like I say, I was unaware of what was going on, but we'll do whatever we have to do. But like I say, we're under great distress down here at this office because of what's going on.
Thank you.
Kyle Sylvester would like to speak again.
Okay, Circuit Clerk Kyle Sylvester.
I did have one question about the ordinance. Looking at Article 1, it says that the quorum court will make available a total amount of $34,679,607. Then Article 2 says they're only appropriating $30,049,422. I guess my question is, where's the other $4.5 million going if, in fact, you go to the top numbers and they make sure that the general fund reserves have $5 million. I guess that was my question. I don't know where $4 million went.
It's in unappropriated reserves. It's not?
No.
Where is it then?
That's all those other general funds.
Oh, general fund.
You don't have any control over.
That's under the county judge's direction, those contracts. All right, thank you. Any other comments? Okay.
We have,
What do we
we're
have?
moving on to public comment. I've got two.
Okay, we got.
Well, I've got Bobby Hill also has his hand raised again.
All right. We're gonna go with Lance Johnson first. Lance?
My only question is, are we taking, our elected officials taking everything out of their automation funds that they can take out?
Probably. Because those are restricted. They come from other funds and they are restricted in how they can be used.
Okay, I get it. But I was asking, it was a yes or no question.
You'll have to ask elected officials.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
JP Yvette Madison has her hand raised. She's been called on twice.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Kyle Sylvester, and if we have time, we'll come back to her. All right.
I think Bobby Hill. I think we heard from
Bobby
Hill.
Hill? Do you wish to speak, Bobby?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
To answer JP Johnson's questions, at least as far as myself and the collector, all of our office expenses are taken out of our automation funds. Only some of our personnel are taken out of the general fund. And just for a overall budget, let's not forget I think JP Duncan alluded to it, but $2 million the general fund will be on the hook for pretty much for the jail. before all is said and done. So don't forget that. That will be coming out of general fund. And here in the next day or two, I will have more revenue projections. Just want to let you know that. That's all I have.
Thank you. I think you spoke
Twice.
twice too, so if you've spoken twice, let's go on, unless you have something completely different, 10%. Let's go on for public comment.
Angela Wood has her hand raised.
Angela Wood.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to let you know that I'm taking everything out of my automation that I possibly can.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, public comment.
Sarah Moore.
All right, Sarah Moore. You're recognized.
Hi, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I was curious if we're going to start and we're talking about what the general fund looks like, and then we're going to allocate like from the revenue forward. I was curious about the breakdown from the way I understand it of the 1% sales tax in the past when it started in like 1980. And I don't know the full history, and there may be other people that understand it better than I. But it sounds like at some point in that time, it wasn't any law. It was just kind of like a resolution to say that we were going to split 40% to the roads and 60% was split out to some different things, which basically is the general fund now, because we didn't have a jail and things like that. And so I'm incredibly curious. It feels like the roads department, while we want them to have as much money as is necessary to maintain our roadway and our bridges, I'm very curious. It seems like they tend to have a healthy balance. And is that not something that we need to maybe be talking about in this full conversation about what split makes sense? Because I heard brought up about the fact that the jail fund, the jail tends to hit our general fund. And I have concerns about making as much general fund money accessible to these other departments to give things that are necessary for, raises to support individuals that have been here and worked really hard during the pandemic, and giving our leaders in those departments the ability to reward those individuals. And I hear a lot of uncertainty with folks have tightened a lot of their belts for this last budget. And so I'm concerned about that. So I would really like to have a conversation or hear a conversation with the court where we are either, if we're looking at the roads department and trying to determine, do they really need the allocation of the 40%? Is there some potential to shift that percentage so that we could put more money towards the general fund to help these other departments? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Beth Moore.
Seth?
Beth Moore.
Beth Moore. It says Beth.
Beth Coger.
Or Beth Coger, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My apologies, Beth.
That's okay. I'll go by either way. Well, Sarah Moore just covered some of the things I wanted to say, but I would like to, this bothers me about the raises. That one, JP mentioned budget controls and checks and balances, but where were those early 2018 when Judge Wood gave huge pay raises to his administrative staff? I mean, where were those budget controls and the checks and balances? They don't seem to be working that well. And also, again, with the raises for the county employees, I want to remind the court that our hardworking county employees are the biggest asset that this county has. They risk their lives every day in this pandemic to come to work. I'm talking about the people who work in the courthouse offices, who dig the ditches and fill the potholes and gravel the roads and clean and maintain our buildings. These people work hard, and they deserve a living wage and they deserve a raise. And the way this is written right now, you've heard the people, the different elected officials say how they can't give those raises. So I just ask, please, that the court remember them when you're having these discussions and when you're voting. Thank you.
Is there any other public comment? If not, we're going to go on and move on and vote on the amendment. The amendment is to add to the ordinance a phrase that public officials would pay their employees out of their allotted percentages. raises out of their allotted percentages. All right, Miss Patty, would you call the roll, please?
Patrick Deakins,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Chandra Washington,
No.
Eva Madison,
No.
Andrea Jenkins,
No.
Suki Hires,
No.
Sue Madison,
No.
Willie Lemming,
Tough one. I'm gonna say yes.
Butch Pond,
No.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Susan Cunningham,
Yes.
Derek Thomas, Judith Yanez,
No.
I have 6 for, and 7 against.
All right, the amendment fails. Let's go back to the original motion. We have a motion to pass and a second. Is there any further comment?
JP, Eva Madison has her hand raised.
JP Madison, Eva Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I spent most of today trying to analyze these percentages and what we've accomplished with this. The best I can figure out, we've spent now 4 meetings discussing general fund budgets. We converted all those budgets into percentages, and now we've converted them all back into dollars to arrive at exactly the same place we were at the first budget meeting. This percentage nonsense is purely that. It's nonsense. It's meaningless. It's just confused people. I mean, the elected officials are trying to figure it out. And then what's more is once Ms. Burnett provided the spreadsheet today, the percentages that are actually in the ordinance are rounded. If you look at the Excel spreadsheet that I assume was maybe prepared by the comptroller, you need to go out a few decimal places and not round, because I was speaking about like the prosecutor's budget and the public defender's budget. So if you took the flat percentages, like say the prosecutor's 5.1%, we're actually would be giving him more than he asked for. Conversely, the prosecutor or the public defender's budget at 2.5%, we were giving them less than they asked for. And it was because we rounded. If once I carried the decimal places out in the Excel spreadsheet, I learned that the prosecuting attorney wasn't 5.1, he was 5.06534454, which when you're talking a percentage of $30 million, that amounts to a significant portion of someone's budget. If you look at the public defender's budget, they're not a flat 2.5%, they're 2.51374555. If we actually put in the true percentages, we would match. But then all we've accomplished is we're passing what we're calling budget controls, saying, hey, if you're in the general fund and you requested money, we're going to give you all of it. That's all this ordinance does. It doesn't do anything else. And I don't know how that's magic or what we've accomplished. The goal of $5 million in reserves is a goal that we've already accomplished because we're already there. We've already have more than $5 million in reserves. And I think what we've realized is you can't just talk about approving general fund budgets without considering roads and jail as part of it. We haven't even looked at the jail budget. We haven't heard from the sheriff at all. And if they need $1 million extra, then that matters for what we do with general fund budgets. If we looked at the road department budget and realized that they got plenty of money and they don't need 40% of the sales tax, that matters for what we do with general fund budgets. And the other thing is that $5 million in reserves, and this is what I was going to say when I wasn't recognized a third time, it was to address Mr. Sylvester's comment about where's the extra money. Keep in mind that we start with a high number in excess of $40 million. We take the holdback. the money that the state says that we have to set back that we can't budget. That's 10%. So it knocks off 10%. Then JP Duncan wants to set aside $5 million. So you take $5 million out. Then you take out the 3.2 million that are in what Mr. Lester described as the judge's budgets that basically nobody has control over. That's 3.2. That gets us to $31.434 million. We're budgeting 30.049, which is what's been requested in the general fund. That leaves $1.385 million that we're not addressing. And I think to do that with blinders on, without considering the jail, without considering the road department, is not a newfangled way of doing the budget and doing it some better way. It's actually short-sighted. And these mental gymnastics that we've made people go through to say, okay, well, now your budget's not a dollar amount, it's a percentage, but oh, that percentage is actually just taking your budget amount and dividing it by what we're going to budget to come up with a percentage. When I finally figured that out today, I was like, why did we bother doing that? To take a budget number, convert it to a percentage, and then convert it back to a number. And then the really troublesome part is that the percentages in the ordinance they don't precisely match the percentages. And so people look like they're getting short or they're getting extra. And so I can't hear if somebody's talking.
18 seconds remaining in your time.
Okay, well, thanks for using it up. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, JP Duncan.
Fellow members of the court, I hope you won't be derailed by all the things that have been said this evening. I hope everyone can keep in mind the goal of growing reserves, growing the county savings account. There's a goal behind this. I was ambitious in hoping that we could put a little more pressure on elected officials and add raises in there as well. And that still would be a goal maybe for future years. Obviously, it's not in the cards for this year or tonight. So I ask that you keep in mind the ultimate goal of growing reserves and being responsible, fiscally responsible for our county and the funds that we oversee. Madam Chair, please call the question.
All right, the question's been called.
You got to vote on that.
All right.
Who was the second?
Do I need to do a roll call?
Yep, you got to have a second. Got to have a second.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a second. For a point of order.
Call the question.
Call the question. Patty, would you call the roll, please?
What's the question?
To vote.
To vote on the ordinance.
In discussion and vote on passing the ordinance that's in front of you.
Wait,
What
are we voting on?
Sorry,
The motion is to call the question, to end discussion on the current item on the agenda. And so the vote is on whether or not to call the question.
All right, Ms. Patty?
Patrick Deakins,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes?
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Chandra Washington,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Eva Madison,
no.
Andrea Jenkins,
Yes.
Suki Hires,
No.
Sue Madison,
No.
Willie Lemming,
Yes.
Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Susan Cunningham,
Yes.
Derek Thomas, Judith Yanez,
No.
You'll need to vote. You'll need to vote.
We have to allow for public comment.
That was to call the question, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That was to vote, yes, on the ordinance that we had before us for 3 meetings. All right.
The question has been called.
The question has been called, and so we will vote
Have to
on
have.
the ordinance. We will vote on the ordinance as presented. All right.
Public comment?
Public comment.
See no hands raised.
All right, seeing no hands raised, Ms. Patty, would you please call the roll?
JP Harbison, can you tell me who made the motion and second?
JP Duncan and Johnson, JP Johnson.
Madam Chair, there is a hand raised.
It was raised after you went ahead to say call, so it's up to you.
All right, we've already called.
No, her hand's been up. Sorry, I'm sorry.
JP. Ms. Patty, please call the roll.
Patrick Deakins,
Yes.
Lisa Ecke,
Yes.
Sam Duncan,
Yes.
Shonda Washington,
No.
Eva Madison,
No.
Andrea Jenkins,
No.
Suki Hires,
No.
Sue Madison,
No.
Willie Lemming,
Same.
What?
abstain, Butch Pond,
Yes.
Lance Johnson,
Yes.
Susan Cunningham,
Yes.
Derek Thomas, Judith Yanez.
No.
Fails.
6-4,
6-6, isn't it?
and one, right, 6-6, and one abstain.
So I'm gonna break the tie and I'm gonna vote yes. So we can move on with this process. All right. Public, okay, this did pass, correct, Brian?
I actually have a question, a point of order, or maybe a point of information, because JP Lemming did not vote. JP Thomas is not here. Was there really a tie?
I had 6-6.
So typically in a committee meeting, you would go with the votes that were actually cast. Unlike the quorum court, when you're passing an ordinance, you're required by state law to go by all the number of justices, whether they're present or not, whether they abstain or not.
But my understanding was in a committee, it was the majority of those present. And with JP Lemming present, the chair doesn't get to break the tie.
The chair gets to break the tie. If the chair's vote will determine the outcome, will change the outcome of what has happened, the chair has the ability to vote.
All right. That is correct.
Well, but
it
takes 7.
We're gonna move on. We will have our next, budget meeting on the 6th, and we will have the road department and the jail, present, and our, salary consultant will be here, and by then we'll know,
Hand up.
what money we have. All right,
Chair.
JP Madison has a motion.
JP Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the last meeting, I requested that Chair Jenkins of County Services hold a meeting.
JP Madison, this is not germane to the budget meeting, so I will not allow you to speak on this issue.
JP Washington has a motion.
JP Washington.
I have a question. The past 3 meetings, I have asked the question and made a request. Is it possible for us all to be on the same platform for this meeting? And I've not gotten a response. So after 3 questions, I would just like a response or just a response.
What else? I also have a question on that.
Well, you'll have to ask IT department that. I assume that we're on the same platform, because that's what their assumption is.
Okay, well, I'm
So-
sorry. Let me clarify. When I mean the same platform, either we're all in the courtroom together or we're all on Zoom. Because even from tonight, we're seeing that it's difficult for the chair to see who on the Zoom platform has their hands raised and all of that. So it just seems that it would be a lot easier if we were all in the same place. And since we cannot safely meet in the courtroom, I guess my real question is, when did we decide that we couldn't just use Zoom? And is it possible for us to do that?
Okay, I will answer that question. The county judge has the ability to determine what kind of meetings we have, and he said we could have hybrid meetings. He made that determination and he made that decision. Thank you. J.P. Lemming.
I would just like to make the comment, there's 7 extra chairs here.
No, we're not.
You're out of order.
No, this.
Yeah, JP Hires has their hand raised to make a motion.
J.P. Hires.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, JP Washington said everything that I wanted to say. Getting a lot of questions for constituents. They see that there's a fairly clear party divide between who's in the courthouse and who is on Zoom, and the situation where people are not being recognized and muted. And it's bringing up a lot of questions with constituents about the fairness of this process. So I just wanted to echo what JP Washington said and add my 2 cents. Thank you.
All right, thank
JP
you.
Sue Madison has a motion to make.
J.P. Sue Madison.
Madam Chair, I want to speak under public comment about why the meeting has not been scheduled that I requested at our last meeting. I requested it be held immediately to discuss the red dirt pit. It's clear there have been inappropriate activities, and I think the public needs to know what's going on down there. And I will repeat my request that we schedule a meeting, or excuse me, that Chairman Deakins schedule a meeting immediately.
All right.
JP.
Thank you for your comments.
JP Eva Madison would like to be recognized.
J.P. Eva Madison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're the chairwoman of this committee, so you decide on the format, not the county judge. Moreover, it was my.
I called the Association of Counties and they said the county judge made that decision. I've already done my homework on that. Thank you.
Well, you're the chair. Take hold of your chair responsibilities.
Public comment.
Thank you.
Tom?
I'm not finished talking. Have I been recognized or not? I keep getting muted.
Well, if you're on public comment, you
I'm
may
not
comment.
in public comment. I was recognized to speak.
And she stopped speaking.
Well,
my question is, my understanding is we went to this horrible hybrid format of meetings. We were told very clearly that 7 people could be there. And at the last 2 meetings, 8 people have been there. So what has changed that has not been shared with the rest of the court?
nothing. All right, J.P. Jenkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just like to make a comment. If those of us on Zoom decided to come into the courtroom, we would be totally against CDC guidelines. Furthermore, yes, it is true that some of us are being muted in the middle of speaking, mainly Eva Madison, JP Eva Madison. It's not fair that we, as elected officials, are muted while speaking, whereas those of you who are on the court can't be muted. It's not fair. This platform is not fair. We all need to be in the same place doing the same thing. That is all I have to say.
All right, thank you for your comments. All right, I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, second, we are adjourned.
Keep in order.
I'm right here.
Right now.